This is the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhoads, author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Make More Money Selling Your Art, Proven Techniques to Turn Your Passion into Profit.
In the Marketing Minute, I try to answer your questions, and you can always email me, eric@plenairmagazine.com. And don't forget, tell me your city and your name. I get a lot of names. I don't get a lot of cities. Here's one from Janice Webb Kirsten. I don't know where she's from. Janice says, I'd like to know, probably this answers it. Janice says, I'd like to know about pricing for regional markets. I'm selling in Seattle and getting a lot of inquiries from my hometown in Idaho. So it's Janice in Idaho. Janice in Idaho, I'm not sure exactly what the question is, but the question, I think, is should you have a different price in your hometown than you have in Seattle? I think you're assuming people in your hometown can't afford the same price as people in Seattle, which may or may not be true, but it might be a story you're telling yourself. I talk a lot about the stories we tell ourselves because we have this limiting belief. You know, there are probably people driving Mercedes-Benz or nice cars or having big houses in your town in Idaho. If not, maybe it's an economically depressed area. It's a different thing. I think the key is you should have consistency in your pricing. I don't want to go on a website. You know, if I walk into a gallery in Seattle and then I look up your name and I find it on a website in a gallery in Idaho for half the price, I'm not going to be a happy camper, right? And then that's going to cause all kinds of other problems. And so I don't think necessarily having different prices is a good idea. Now, sometimes there's a good reason for it. So, for instance, I'll paint a 9x12 figure painting and I'll paint a 9x12 landscape painting. The figure painting might take me 5 times longer. Maybe I'll ask for a different price for that, but it's an exception, right? So that's one of the things you want to think about. Also, you really should be in the places that are going to sell your artwork. You know, it's not about getting the lowest price, it's about getting the highest price. And so if you're selling well in Seattle, you know, do you really need to sell in your hometown? Maybe you can pick up another gallery in another market like Seattle so that you're selling, you know, get into Santa Fe or something like that. So I think that kind of answers that question. Here's a question from Jane Cameron in England. It doesn't say where in England. Jane says, you Americans, I think we're being scolded already. Jane says, you Americans tend to be much more forward about marketing than we are in England. I'm afraid that if I tried some of the tactics in your book and using a lot of repetition, I might get laughed out of town. Well, Jane, there's a figure of speech called laughing all the way to the bank. That's all I can tell you. There are 3 things. First, only you know your market. Make sure you know your market well, and make sure you're not telling yourself a story. You know, is this really true? Because I've had lots of those stories, and in reality, they were never true. You know, somebody will say, well, you email too much, and I know some people don't like that, but when I don't email, I don't sell anything. When I do, things tend to sell. So you've got to follow practices in marketing that are going to work. Practices in marketing have to do with very compelling headlines, very compelling copy, things that are going to get attention. You know, great marketing works pretty much the same way anywhere. I went to a seminar, a marketing seminar. There was a guy there, I can't remember his name, but he was from the United Kingdom, and he did seminars in the United Kingdom. And he said when he started out, he believed this whole idea that, you know, in marketing in England is more genteel. So he kind of took that approach, and nothing was selling. And so he went to the marketing guru, a guy named Dan Kennedy, and Kennedy basically said, no, you got to use the same principles. Same principles apply everywhere. You got to have repetition. You got to have compelling copy. You don't try to be so genteel. So he went out and just did what he recommended he do, and all of a sudden everything started selling. So he was telling himself a story. Great marketing works. Great marketing techniques work. People who try to be quiet and gentle and, you know, not too obtrusive, hey, that's okay too. You know, you got to try your style, but you got to try and figure out a way to make it work. And part of the problem we suffer with in the world is, you know, we suffer with the idea of getting attention. What are you going to do to get attention and clobber people over the head so that they're going to sit up and take notice? Because if you're a little meek little feather in the corner and nobody notices, well, that's not going to do you any good. But if you stand out, if you're bold, you get noticed, well, that's going to do you a lot of good. And then you can laugh all the way to the bank. All right, hope that helps. Anyway, that's been the Marketing Minute.
This has been the Marketing Minute with Eric Rhoads. You can learn more at artmarketing.com.